the last point I'll make is that Trump, there's always a big difference between Trump's rhetoric and the actual facts.
Mr. Katju, you mentioned an important point where you were talking about how he specified only two genders now. There's no place for the transgenders. What happens to the supposedly inclusive society of America? Do you see some kind of social changes also coming in there? Because now you've completely like ignored the third gender.
Well, I think there'll be a struggle for this.
Okay.
Part of the conservatism that that Trump is promoting and he supports uh, was already seen in the Biden administration. Also, the enormous powers that the Supreme Court now have given through the immunity provided to the president for post. So virtually a president can get away with any action that he may take during his term of office. Earlier, the thinking was that after a president gives up office, if he's committed irregularities, if he's accused of crimes, he can be charged. Now it's going to be extremely difficult.
No, but what is the kind of indication Mr. Kaju he has given by, by talking about his expansionist tendencies? He's spoken about it during the campaign. Now, even after swearing in, if he talks like this, what is the message he's trying to give the world?
Well, in short, the message he's giving is that what America wants, the world will have to do.
But Mr. Kaushik, does he sound more unpredictable? Does he sound more uncertain than what his first term was?
Uh, yes, to an extent, because he did not undertake actions on the first day. He's obviously a very bitter man. Yes, he will try to stamp his imprint on the American system. He has said that this will be the most consequential presidency in American history. Now, I take all that with a pinch of salt. Yes, he is a disruptor. Where he will cause enormous backslide, which is not good for the world, is on the main existential crisis of our time, which is climate change. He is a climate skeptic.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States of America. In his inaugural address, Trump stressed on a lot of issues reflecting his intentions that he wants to bring back the golden period of America. From Mars to Mexico to withdrawing from the World Health Organization, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Change Agreement, then pardoning about 1,500 Capitol Hill rioters. The big question, which everyone now is asking, will Donald Trump be an autocrat? Will he be a disruptor? Will he bring in more uncertainty? Joining me this evening on all of this is former Ambassador Mr. Vivek Katju. Thank you so much, sir, for joining on HW News. My first question, sir, to you is that the kind of executive orders which he has given and ranging from like many issues, how much of that is implementable?
Uh, I think some of these are clearly implementable. For example, pulling out of the Paris Agreement, he had done that in his first term. Pulling out of the World Health Organization, again, he had done it in the first term. So those aren't difficult. The difficulties would lie in some of the domestic orders that he has issued. And I think they would lie in immigration. It's easy to send out a relatively small number, given the large number of illegal immigrants in the United States. So it's easy to send out a small number or a small proportion of this number. But I think, as I was submitting on one of your shows, which you anchored yesterday, the American economy is dependent both uh, on immigration and at the lower end of the spectrum, this immigration is very largely illegal. So, if you send out these people in large numbers, there'll suddenly be a vacuum and a shortage of people. I don't think the American economy can withstand that. It won't be easy to replace these people with legal immigrants. At the same time, the American economy is also dependent at the higher end uh, on immigrants, on highly trained, sophisticated technical experts. The second thing that he has said is that I will clean up our cities. Now, there's a bit of a problem. The American system is a federal system. This law and order is primarily a state subject, as it is in India. So he can't send in the National Guard on whims and fancies unless there's an objective reason to send in the National Guard, and there is, especially in states which are ruled by Democrats, governors are Democrats, they won't invite the National Guard in. So so a lot of this is bombast, and we'll have to really see how things unfold. The last point I'll make is that Trump, there's always a big difference between Trump's rhetoric and the actual facts. For example, he said, he said, and I think the implication was that if Hamas does not release the refugees uh, before he comes to office, all hell will break loose. Now, clearly, uh, they've only released three, and there's an entire sequence. And I was reading somewhere
Right.
that he himself is not very sanguine as to how this deal will proceed. So we'll really have to wait and watch. And I, for one, uh, don't take Trump entirely at his word, or don't take his rhetoric. Of course, I take it seriously, but uh, the experience of his first term shows that there's always a difference between what he says and its implementation.
But Mr. Katju, would you see the kind of changes he's trying to bring in? Would you call these changes as some very drastic and seismic changes, which could obviously, be seen as a tectonic shift in American politics and also for the world order?
Let's take the first things first, which is American politics. For a long time, the United States has been a polarized society. I believe that the technological changes in the United States, as in the world, but the United States is the leader in 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 digital technologies and high tech technologies, and which are going through a revolutionary phase. That this is leading to a great deal of disparity between those who possess enormous amounts of money. In fact, they're talking now of a company which will have a market capitalization of $1 trillion. It's mind-boggling. And those who don't. In this process, liberal values are, I won't say use the word retreat, but a very large number of Americans who are bothered about bread and butter issues who feel that the liberal order has not delivered. Uh, they are not as passionately committed to the old liberal order as large numbers were in the past. That is also seen in Europe. It's seen in the rest of the world. So I think we'll have a struggle there. Trump has the advantage of having a conservative Supreme Court, a majority of 6 to 3.
Right.
He's announced, for instance, which is going against the current of the American liberal system, how it's evolved, that now there's no space for any transgenders. It's only male or female as far as gender issues are concerned. Now that it
Oh,
remains to
Justice
be
Katju,
seen.
sorry, Mr. Katju, you mentioned an important point where you were talking about how he specified only two genders now. There's no place for the transgenders. What happens to the supposedly inclusive society of America? Do you see some kind of social changes also coming in there? Because now you've completely like ignored the third gender.
Well, I think there'll be a struggle for this.
Okay.
Part of the conservatism that Trump is promoting and he supports uh, was already seen in the Biden administration. After all, the reversal of by the Supreme Court on in Roe versus Wade was a clear indication of that. Also, the enormous powers that the Supreme Court now have given through the immunity provided to the president for post. So, virtually, a president can get away with any action that he may take during his term of office. Earlier, the thinking was that after a president gives up office, if he's committed irregularities, if he's accused of crimes, he can be charged. Now it's going to be extremely difficult to prove that. So,
Absolutely.
given all this, I think there's a trend towards conservatism in America, but it will be contested. It will certainly be contested, and America will continue to remain a polarized society. I
Mhm.
don't see that ending anytime soon. The
So,
second thing that you asked, sorry,
yes,
please
yeah,
go
no,
on.
no, please go ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
Second thing that you asked was about the world order. Now, on that, I must say that I'm a little intrigued, and mm, I think events will have to show how it will be fully impacted. 2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago, now it's coming to 3 years, the world order was severely impacted when the Russians moved into Ukraine. After all, Russia is a P5 country, and P5 countries have a special role in the maintenance of international peace and security. Now, Trump's rhetoric in his inaugural speech, or the indications that he gave on the Panama issue, quite frankly, he has said it in rally in speeches as president elect, but then to say all this in his inaugural speech, I really can't make out what he has in mind.
No, but what
Uh,
is the kind of indication Mr. Kaju he has given by, by talking about his expansionist tendencies? He's spoken about it during the campaign. Now, even after swearing in, if he talks like this, what is the message he's trying to give the world?
well, in short, the message he is giving is that what America wants, the world will have to do. But the world is a far more complex place. After
Absolutely.
all, will he send troops to Panama to reverse what has been in place since 31st December 1999, when the Americans finally relinquished control over the Panama Canal and the zone, and handed over its management and its operations, uh, ownership, etc., to the government of Panama, which has set up a Panama Canal Control Authority. Now, he's saying that the Chinese are there. The Chinese apparently have are controlled. There are two companies which are subsidiaries of a Chinese company based in Hong Kong, which control two of the five ports at both ends of the canal, the Caribbean end and the Pacific end. Um, but we really don't know. What he has done is created enormous uncertainty. And that uncertainty is having consequences. After all, you see the Indian stock market today. People
Absolutely.
are bewildered. They don't really know what this man is going to do. So he is breaking the first canon which is expected of an American president,
Hmm.
which is that he should be predictable. In his first term, you can be a disruptor, but the disruption has to proceed in a predictable fashion if you
Hmm.
don't want the world to be totally chaotic. And I believe you don't serve, he won't serve America's domestic interests by behaving the way he is, but he is doing it.
But Mr.
And
Kaushik, does he sound more unpredictable? Does he sound more uncertain than what his first term was?
uh, yes, to an extent, because he did not undertake actions on the first day. He's obviously a very bitter man. He's 78 years old. He's gone through a process of judicial accountability. Uh, and I, for one, don't think that the cases against him were unfair. He has pardoned all the rioters. But what happened in on Capitol Hill on the 6th of January 2021 shocked not only the Americans or those who were neutral or those who were Democrat. It shocked even large sections of the world. No one was expecting to see mobs rampaging through the capital and he's pardoned 1,500 people. So this shows that he is appealing to his base. He's telling his base that he will do exactly what he was saying that he would. But these are early times, early days, and
Right.
let's not jump to conclusions. That's my point I'm making.
Mr. Kachu, now I want to shift gears as far as the Indo US relations are concerned and what has happened between Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump. Modi wasn't present there at the swearing in, as Jaishankar was present there. But what is the kind of stance which now India should be taking? Should India maintain a distance at an arm's length? Does it to be need to be overcautious now and not display the friendship between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi as it was done in the past? What kind of changes do you expect, and what should India be doing at this point of time?
Look, there are two separate issues here. There are relations between leaders and there are relations between states. I know that some good relations, personal relations between leaders sometimes ease and help relations between states to progress, but I, for one, do not place much emphasis on a quote unquote friendship between leaders. States are guided by their interests, and there has to be a coincidence of interests for for a forward progressive movement in the bilateral relationship. I do believe that there are sectors in which there is a coincidence of interest between India and the United States, and that these sectors will continue. That is why you see within the United States a degree of bipartisan support for improving ties with India, and that has been seen not from now, but from the time of President Clinton. You see, Clinton After he had absorbed the shock of our nuclear tests, there were there were talks between Jaswant Singh and Stroke Talbot that led to a certain redefining of the relationship. Then, during Manmohan Singh's time, there was the Bush and Manmohan Singh's time, there was the nuclear deal, which eased the path of the flow of high technology to India. After that, the Americans were confronted with the rise and a very aggressive rise of China under the present Chinese President Xi Jinping. And they started crafting out a policy of how to handle that. And they saw India as an important component in that policy, especially with regard to the Indo Pacific. There were inhibitions in Delhi initially, but those inhibitions are in the past, and we are today part of the Quad. And in fact, I think Jaishankar will be participating in a meeting of four Quad ministers. The
Yes.
Secretary of State, Rubio, has been confirmed. I think he's the first cabinet level uh, person who's been confirmed by the Senate. So it is expected that there'll be a meeting of the Quad ministers, and that's good.
Right.
But there are
But
issues.
right. But so what he has said in his inaugural address and the kind of executive orders which he has passed, if I may ask you to list out three, four very big concerns for India, which maybe could turn out as challenges for India, what are those in your opinion?
Well, one on immigration, I think there'll be a certain turbulence if illegal immigrants start arriving in large numbers or are pushed, sent on flights back to India. At the moment, the figure of 18,000 is being tossed around. But they say that if you see the number of illegal immigrants, there are over 7 lakhs, and we are perhaps the third. Uh, India has the third largest group of illegal immigrants. But on illegal immigrants, I've told you my view that I don't think he can proceed beyond. But that will be a concern because that will be an element of uncertainty. The second would be on tariffs. He has spoken quite firmly that he expects that people will be fair to America on trade. He wants America, like in the past, that America should become a manufacturing power. We all know that technology is driving manufacturing processes uh, in a revolutionary way, though the old manufacturing processes are no longer there. So on tariffs, we'll have to wait and watch. He well might demand the opening up of our economy in areas that have been politically sensitive here, agriculture, for instance. Then conspicuous items of what are considered conspicuous consumption, though I think by now there's such vast conspicuous consumption in India that perhaps won't be
Right.
such a lot of trouble. So those two things I can see. The third is on issues relating to West Asia. What will he demand when it comes to say our relations with Iran? Will he ask for a certain price that we toe his line, and that might be very difficult. Then on purchase, he is quite clearly saying that America, what did he say? Dig, baby, dig, go. Some such. That means that he is going all out to increase American hydrocarbon production and make America a big exporter. Now, we have said that, and we have done that, purchasing Russian oil on this. Will he try to put a squeeze because he's determined to bring about some kind of a modus vivendi between Russia and Ukraine? I don't think it'll be easy because the only way I can see it happen is for Ukraine to accept uh, that the territories that Russia is occupying, Ukrainian territory, will be de facto under Russian control for a long time, even though there might not be international recognition and to the Russian action. Can the Ukrainians live with this? So, on this, we may have an issue. So, these are the kind of things that come to my mind. Uh, yes, on one question, I think there'll be a degree of comfort all over the world, and which is that I don't think he'll be very serious on issues relating to human rights.
But Mr. Kachu, now everyone is asking that, will Donald Trump rule as an autocrat? Will he undermine the American democracy? Because he's heading towards a certain level of conservatism. And but what happens to democracy? Can we see some kind of a democratic backsliding also with too much of power resting in him now?
Look, the American institutional systems have been strong. He is a, and I think I made that point yesterday on your show too, that he is a very powerful president. I don't think that in recent decades, or certainly in recent history, anyone has had the kind of power that Donald Trump wields. Uh, he has legislative power, the Supreme Court with him. Uh, but he will not be able to railroad his way through these American institutions. He has, for example, spoken of the weaponization of the Department of Justice and
Yes,
that he won't do it. He has said free speech. Now, what does free speech mean? Does it mean hate speech as well? Will the American courts countenance hate speech? So I think we've got to wait and watch. And it's I can't tell you that he'll behave like an autocrat. Certainly, he'd like his agenda to prevail, and he'd like the Congress as well as the judiciary to accept his agenda. But there might be opposition to his agenda, and some members of his own party as time passes, because he is 78. He is a vigorous man of 78, but age exacts a toll. After all, we know that it exacted a toll on Biden. And Biden had to give up midstream. Why? Because of age. So when
absolutely.
Donald Trump is 81 years old, 3 years from now, will he be the same vigorous person he he appears today? We don't know. So I don't think that let's think in terms of autocracy and yes, he will try to stamp his imprint on the American system. He has said that this will be the most consequential presidency in American history. Now, I take all that with a pinch of salt. Yes, he is a disruptor. And I think, apart from what he'll do internally, apart from the geopolitical turbulence he may cause, because on geopolitics, his first the first problem he'll have to face is China. After all,
Absolutely.
he faced it in his first term, Biden faced it. Uh, Before that, Obama faced it. It began in Bush's time, but these last four presidents have faced it. He'll have to face that. There's no getting away from it. And China is no longer a low end manufacturing country, it is a scientific and technological power, and it's closing the gap. And the American sections of America are petrified at this
Absolutely.
point. So those are aspects that he'll have to see. Yes, where he will cause enormous backslide, which is not good for the world, is on the main existential crisis of our time, which is climate change. He is a climate skeptic,
Right.
and his actions have shown that. When
Absolutely.
he says "dig, baby, dig," what does it mean? He wants America to start exploring hydrocarbons and export them in a very, very big way, because he thinks that that is one way of bringing down prices, which
Yeah.
he needs. Because if he imposes tariffs, tariffs will increase prices inevitably. So he has to find a way to balance. And if he's doing this, but what will be its consequence on the warming of the planet? We really have to wait and watch, because unless America is fully committed to preventing climate change, or to mitigating it, to adapting uh, climate change, no other country of the world can do it by itself.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned very, very important points. First, you said that he will be a disruptor. In the beginning, you said that he will bring in more uncertainty. And now, the third and the last point that you mentioned is very, very important. And that is that the world might face an existential crisis for Trump having withdrawn from the Paris climate change agreement. It was wonderful to have you on the program, Mr. Kaju. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay ahead with our cutting edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.